Good evening, everyone. Mike Palmer from Know Your Rights Group and Success Coaching International with a very different type of video update tonight. It has obviously been a very, very big week since I last spoke to everybody, and of course, in particular, a very big last few days. I spent a lot of time over the past few days speaking to people over the phone, in particular, some of our founding members, some of our long-time supporters, even reporters. And I've been thinking about how best to try and conduct tonight's video update, especially in light of everything that, of course, happened on Tuesday, and how I can perhaps try and answer some of the many questions and the many ideas that have been floating around through emails and social media and online and everything else. Now, in particular, there have been a lot of different theories doing the rounds online, everything from, oh, he's a complete nutcase that just lost it, right through to it's a false flag operation designed to take more of our guns and tighten free speech restrictions, and pretty much everything in between. Now, one thing that I know for sure is that there are a lot more questions than answers right now. And in particular, there seems to be a lot of very deliberate division going on right now. So I need to be very careful. I need to approach things in a very calm, clear, rational, and of course, very respectful way, to ensure that I'm able to, affect and impact the most people, which of course is the ultimate aim of what these videos are all about, and of course what we do as part of the Know Your Rights group. Now, before I start though, I would ask everyone to please keep in mind, I'm human too. I've got my own thoughts and feelings on things just like, you do yourselves. So as I go through tonight's information, obviously, please feel free to take on board anything that resonates with you. Take the time to sit and think about it or do a bit more research if that's your thing. And of course, feel free to discard anything that doesn't resonate with you. But please, there's no need for any abusive comments or negativity on this video. Let's try and keep things as positive as we can and focused. So I'm going to begin tonight by obviously extending my condolences to the families of the officers that were killed in the line of duty this week. At the end of the day, nobody, no matter who you are, expects themselves or their loved ones to go out to work one day and then to not return. So look, no matter what happened, no matter how it ultimately happened and unfolded, I do genuinely feel for the families of those officers concerned. Now, unless, of course, you've been living under a rock, you will, of course, realise that I'm referring to the two police officers that were allegedly shot and killed by Dezi Freeman on Tuesday. Now, I do acknowledge that many people out there don't watch the mainstream media at all anymore, and indeed they refer to alternative channels like this to get their information. So just very, very quickly, just to bring everybody up to speed on what the mainstream media are saying in that regard, I'm just going to go through one of the shorter, many articles that have been doing the rounds at the moment. If you want a very quick overview of some of the points the mainstream media are raising, here is a simple one to look at. So, of course, they start with the heading, the self-proclaimed sovereign citizen, which I'll come back to in a moment, and suspect in double police officer murder said he feels like an Auschwitz survivor. The self-proclaimed sovereign citizen on the run after allegedly killing two police officers once compared himself to an Auschwitz survivor. Dezi Bird Freeman has told a court that even the sight of a cop or cop car, it's like an Auschwitz survivor seeing a Nazi soldier. Freeman referred to the police in his evidence as friggin' Nazis, Gestapo and terrorist thugs, something I'm sure that a lot of people who lived in Victoria over the past 5 years can probably relate to. The manhunt for 56-year-old Freeman continues after a 59-year-old detective and a 35-year-old senior constable were killed on Tuesday morning. Victoria Police said 10 officers were at the remote property to execute a warrant in relation to historic sex abuse charges when 2 were shot dead in an ambush and another was wounded. A third officer has undergone surgery. His wife and children have been accounted for after presenting to a police station on Tuesday. Now, on that point, please understand that there were articles like this one doing the rounds when this story first broke, claiming that Dezi Freeman had taken his wife and children as hostage in the bush. Now, of course, that never actually happened, and I'm concerned that the media are able to print basically just blatant lies like that, making claims that simply are not true or at all verifiable. And I hope people look up some of those other articles and hold some of those authors to account. Now, all of the other articles are very clear about saying, allegedly shot 2 police officers and the like. But why does that media article and a couple of others that I've seen clearly state that he took his wife and kids as hostage when that simply didn't happen? Now, unfortunately, that's just one of many, many questions that arise as we go through some of the information online. Now, the other point is that it's not just what the media are actually saying and inferring and insinuating. We've all come to expect that from the mainstream media now. But it's what they're not saying and what they're not giving people a chance to think about, and the many, many questions that people should be asking right now. So, first and foremost, I urge you all, if you're interested in getting to the truth about this situation, start by watching the very short 11-minute court footage video that has been doing the rounds on social media. And we will be putting up a link in the comments if you're watching this on Facebook. And again, of course, we'll put that up in the description for those watching on YouTube and BitChute later on. Now, that video goes some way to explaining how Dezi had been consistently let down by the court system. You've got one magistrate promising one thing and then other magistrates doing something completely different. Now, again, I urge you to watch that video, and I want to make it crystal clear that, of course, that is absolutely no excuse in any way, shape or form for killing anyone, if that's in fact what he did. But we do have to ask the obvious question, or at least obvious to me, and that is why the mainstream media aren't actually pushing that particular video as much, of course, as they're pushing their other versions of events. Why not give people a balanced overview? That's what the media is supposed to be doing, to show people what this man has actually endured from the system and what might have, possibly, we don't know, got him to this point. Now, here's the thing that I found is that once you start from that more balanced perspective, then you'll no doubt start to have a lot of questions come up, which is something that I and many others that I've spoken to have as well. Things like, why were the police officers actually there confiscating guns of someone who hadn't actually been charged or convicted of anything yet? What are these historical sex offences that the media keeps referring to? Why are there no details? Allegations of sexual abuse and rape, especially historical, are the absolute go-to strategy for anyone that the government wants to try and discredit, because, of course, they are so hard to disprove. And again, history has shown that happen many, many times. Why haven't the police released the details of the actual information that was provided to the court as the basis for the warrant that they were acting on? Surely that should be explosive information to show everybody what a danger this man was, and yet there's been no mention of it. Again, why does a historical sex abuse case that, again, we've got no details of, make someone all of a sudden a danger to society today? Now, if they're talking about historical sex abuse, we would have to assume 3 years, 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, who knows? But it didn't happen today or yesterday or last week or probably even last month. So why does this, these allegations of historical sexual abuse make someone a danger today and we have to rush to his property today and take his firearms off him? all these things again. Do you realise that there was actually a previous application made by the police to the courts to have his firearms taken, but the court ruled against that application? Again, many of you probably haven't even heard that because, of course, the media aren't saying anything about it. Now, that's actually quite surprising to me because normally they'd jump on that and they'd twist it around and say, oh, well, that proves why it should have happened back then. And, clearly he was a danger all along. Or was this latest incident just another attempt by the government to disarm a man without a valid reason? Now, this question's been posed by many, many people, and that is simply this. Would this incident have happened if the police hadn't have gone to Dezi's bus to try and take his guns? Obviously, that's something that we'll never know. Why did it take 10 police to go to his home or to his bus in the first place? 10 police seems like quite a lot. Now, possibly they'll claim that, that we knew he was such a danger and all the rest of it. Well, then that poses the next question of if indeed there were 10 police there and he was only in a bus, not an actual house, then surely they would have surrounded the bus. So how did he actually escape? If he was really such a danger and known to police and everything as they're saying, why wouldn't they have some kind of a SWAT team there? We've heard of these things happening before. Now here's the next one. Why out of the 10 police were only 2 actually in the bus? Why did they go into the bus rather than trying to force him out, where they would have control of the situation? And why would they send someone into such a dangerous situation with a man who's known to police, who's only a few days away from retirement? That seems like a very strange operational decision to make. You would think that they would probably keep that sort of person extra safe so he could see out his last few days safely. Now, the other officer, Vadim, do you realise he has actually been before one of our long-term advanced members in the county court, and he was personally provided with a detailed 600-page document regarding the authority and jurisdiction of the police and the courts. So that particular officer was well aware of the many legal arguments regarding that claimed authority or claimed jurisdiction. So did that officer then go back and start asking questions of his superiors? Okay, is that why this particular officer, who was actually based in St Kilda, was transferred on assignment up to Wangaratta and was then one of the 2 officers that was in the bus confronting Dezi? Again, there's lots of coincidental things going on here. Now, look, at the end of the day, of course, I don't know. And look, like what happened at Port Arthur, quite possibly we'll never know, or certainly not for many, many years to come. But once again, as usual, things just don't add up. And there are many more questions than answers. Now, I don't think that there's anybody who's watching this video that doesn't believe that 9/11 was an inside job. I also highly doubt that anyone who's bothered to actually look into the studies and the recreations of Port Arthur, that people who've done that could possibly believe that Martin Bryant actually did what the police and media claim, because there's been numerous studies showing that it simply is impossible. So here, of course, is the very confrontational and difficult question, and that is, if the government have killed innocent people before simply to push forward with an agenda, and we know that gun control and control in general is a huge issue for the government right now. All we need to do is look at what's happening with the gun laws in WA to see what a major issue gun control is. Is it possible that that's what's gone on here too? Again, I don't know the answer, but I do know how to get the answer, or at least get closer to the answer. And that, of course, is by speaking to the people who were actually there. Obviously, his wife and children. So this, to me, is the biggest question surrounding all of this. Why haven't we heard from Dezi's wife and kids to get their version of events. Surely their coming forward and speaking to the media would clarify a lot of the confusion and answer a lot of the questions that police and everybody else has. If, for example, Dezi's wife said, yes, he went on a rampage and he went nuts and snapped and we were scared for our lives and we ran, that would be one thing. But what, of course, if she said something that didn't back up the mainstream media narrative? You see, silence very often speaks louder than words. And given that it's now Thursday night, 2 full days since this event happened, her version of events could in fact clear up a lot if it was in alignment with the mainstream media narrative. The fact that we haven't heard anything from 3 completely innocent people who haven't been charged with anything 2 days after the fact, in and of itself, to me at least, speaks volumes. So what exactly is the mainstream media narrative and agenda here? Well, clearly, once again, it's their typical divide and conquer approach. They want to make out to the majority of the population that anyone who questions the police or government or media is some kind of dangerous, crazed lunatic. But then they want to even further divide the truth and freedom community themselves because they are now posing such a danger to the government because, of course, they're exposing all the lies, deceit and corruption. Now, since the whole COVID pandemic or whatever label you want to put on it, people have been waking up and, more importantly, rising up, standing up for their rights. And that scares the hell out of the government because they know even if they were to completely disarm everybody, people power, if properly connected and concentrated, is an unbeatable force. So they use these terms like sovereign citizens to try and disperse and diffract that collective action. So again, we look at some of these media articles. Why not say a crazed gunman allegedly shot and killed 2 police officers? Why does the media have to keep referring to sovereign citizens? How is that actually at all relevant? Okay, we look back to that ABC hatchet job that I spoke about recently, and they had to go all the way to America to show that sovereign citizens were these violent, deranged people because, of course, they had no evidence of it here in Australia. That whole show, Lawfare or whatever it was called, just went down like a lead balloon. No one was interested in it. So now, of course, they've created one. Now, I do know, of course, there are some, crazy people out there that believe all kinds of, wacky ideas. But you know what the common thread is, no matter what level you might be at in the freedom or truth movement? Here's the thing. No matter what your beliefs are, every person that I know of, at least, in that field ultimately believes that no one is above God's law. And that ultimately is the basis behind the whole movement. Some police and many government officials either don't care or don't believe that God will ultimately judge them for what they've done in their lives. But here's the thing. Every single person in the freedom movement does believe that. So the other obvious question to me is, why would someone who was so ingrained in this ideology, as the mainstream media likes to talk about, why would someone who genuinely believes that no one is above God's law, why would they shoot and kill 2 police officers in cold blood as they're claiming? It just doesn't make any more sense. It seems obvious that there is something more going on. Now, what does make sense when you understand the bigger picture and how they operate is why they do in fact keep using this term sovereign citizens as part of their divide and conquer agenda. Just have a listen to some of the comments that are made in this article, and you'll see it yourselves even in the title. Radical group Former detective reveals how authorities respond to sovereign citizens after Dezi Freeman allegedly shot and killed 2 police officers. A legendary homicide detective has provided an inside look into how police respond to sovereign citizens after a member of the dangerous ideological sect allegedly shot and killed 2 police officers in rural Victoria. Former Victoria Police homicide detective Charlie Bazina, who has worked on some of the state's highest profile criminal cases, labelled the sovereign citizen sects as a radical group that had become a growing concern for state and federal authorities. I don't think many know about it. You don't hear it much in the media, Mr. Benzina said. Hello? It's in the media every second week. There's some new article about sovereign citizens. So I'm not sure what articles Mr. Bazina's reading, but clearly not the mainstream media ones. The sovereign citizen movement is a loose group of anti-government activists, vexatious litigants and conspiracy theorists who pursue a pseudo-legal ideological system that claims not to be subject to any government statutes unless explicitly consented to. Certain proponents of the fringe ideology do not only resent government rules, but reject its legitimacy entirely, with Freeman described as a very active member of the sovereign citizen movement who'd been held in high regard by its followers. Mr. Bazina said the best way to respond to radical groups was to build a mountain of intelligence so that police were equipped to deal with any threat. Policing is intelligence-led. You need intelligence, not smartness on people. So you've got these groups, these radical groups around the place. You need to build a dossier on them and then pre-prepare, Mr. Bazina said. I tell you what, for a leading homicide detective, the bloke can't string a sentence together, can he? Pre-prepare. How do you pre-prepare? You either prepare or you don't prepare. There's no pre-prepare. What's he on about? Mr. Bazina said groups like the sovereign citizen movement were so complicated to deal with and stressed it represented a unique threat to police moving forward. The only unique threat they pose is they're finding out the truth, mate. That's it, nothing more. Despite stating that Australia was not America, Mr. Bazina said that police were getting more radicals and officers had a hypervigilance to respond to any threat. So there they are, talking it up again and how dangerous these sovereign citizens are and all the rest of it. And I'll come back to that in a moment. But first and foremost, I really do laugh at how the media loves to make people out as anti-government, like that's somehow a bad thing. I mean, let's go back to the fundamental ideology behind the truth and freedom movement, the one that the mainstream media, of course, loves to ignore. And that is, whatever your specific beliefs, we are all created in the image of God. We were born free, and even the Bible, the very same one that the police and the courts swear on and use themselves, states that no man shall sit in judgment of another. And yet, of course, that's exactly what they do every day. Now, also remember, when the Bible came out, there were only 10 commandments. How many rules, regulations, statutes, laws and acts do we have now? I mean, who the hell knows? Because it's impossible to keep up with them all. The one thing that all of these new laws, acts, regulations and the like do have in common, though, is that each one erodes even more our God-given freedoms. Just look at the word government itself. I've said this before. It stems from the word govern. We are free beings born in the image of God. Why do we need to be governed and controlled any further than the basic 10 commandments? You see, the media love to refer to sovereign citizens and conspiracy theorists and all that kind of thing. Well, it's my opinion again. It's just my opinion that if you're not anti-government, specifically anti-government control and corruption, in this day and age, then you're probably the conspiracy theorist. Because if you honestly believe that our governments genuinely care about us and genuinely want the best for us, then I'm afraid you're the one with the tinfoil hat on. I've spoken quite recently about these $500 and something thousand each completely pointless machete bins that the Victorian government paid someone to build, only to be used for 3 months. Now, if that is not blatant, obvious government corruption, then I'm sorry, I don't know what is. I've been speaking at length for some time now, years, about this cashless agenda push and the digital ID. Now, again, if that's not government overreach and control, then I simply don't know what is. So, if you're not anti-government control and corruption after looking at all of these types of issues, then I'm sorry, but I think you're the one that has the problem. I think you're the one that's a danger to yourself and others. And if you do realise these issues and you are anti-government, you are anti-government control and anti-government corruption, then my question to you is, what are you doing about it? Okay, we need an uprising. We need a revolution. And no, before anyone jumps on this, I'm not inciting violence of any kind in any way, shape or form. I want to make that crystal clear. What I'm saying is that people need to pick up their pens first and foremost and write to their members of parliament expressing their will about this insane government overreach, insane government corruption. I mean, why on earth hasn't the media or any Victorian politician, with all of their power and influence that they have, gone and found out who on earth awarded that insane machete bin contract and held them to account for it? Why hasn't that happened? Pick up the phone, speak to your local member, go down to their office, organise a face-to-face meeting and share your fears, concerns and thoughts with them in a calm and respectful way, of course, and urge them to take action. Yes, of course we need laws to keep everybody in line, but what we don't need is total government overreach, control and corruption. Now, I genuinely think that the next article that I'm going to share with you really does sum up everything I've spoken about tonight really, really well. Now, it is a little bit longer, but I think it's important. So there's the heading for the article if anyone wants to look it up, and I certainly do urge you all to do so. It is entitled "Language as a Weapon, a Sovereign Citizen, the Smear Label Used to Silence Dissent. Authorities weaponise words to brand everyday Australians as extremists." So, the first subheading, Sovereign Citizen, the smear label used to silence dissent. In the freedom movement, the phrase sovereign citizen has always raised eyebrows. To many, it's an oxymoron, which I've explained many times. Sovereign means supreme authority over oneself. Citizens means subject to the authority of the state. The two cancel each other out. Yet government, police and the media have made it their go-to label for anyone who dares question authority. It does not matter whether you refused the vaccines in 2020, spoke out against mandates, or challenged the endless red tape of government. If you resist, you risk being smeared as a sovereign citizen. The next subheading, the weaponisation of language. The label is a tool. Authorities take a fringe idea, like a handful of people pushing common law arguments in court, and use it to brand the entire movement. Suddenly, everyday Australians who simply want medical freedom are bundled into the same category as alleged extremists. It is guilt by association, a narrative crafted to make dissent look dangerous. This is not new. Governments know the power of language. By tying dissenters to a label associated with extremism, they delegitimise real concerns. The result is predictable: censorship, surveillance, and the steady erosion of free thought. Sovereignty and choice. True sovereignty is not chaos. It is the recognition of each person's divine right to choose for themselves. Yes, we need basic laws to protect people from harm, but no government should ever have the right to dictate what medical procedure goes into your body. Mandates cross that line. Respecting sovereignty does not mean rejecting society. It means recognising that freedom and responsibility go hand in hand. Sovereignty includes respecting others, living with kindness and upholding fairness. What it does not include is being forced into submission by bureaucrats and unelected health officials. Who they target. Authorities paint sovereign citizens as extremists. The reality, of course, is different. Most people accused of being in this category are not dangerous. They are people who simply disagree with overtaxation, inflation, and a monetary system designed to enrich the few while trapping the many. Yet there are small groups who push strict common law interpretations and claim governments are illegitimate. But even among them, the majority are peaceful. They may be viewed as a nuisance by mainstream opinion, but 99.9% are not extremists and are not going to take terrorist-like actions. As with any community, there will always be a tiny percentage who act out. You can find that in every group, whether sports fans, religious groups, political parties, or protest movements. And I would even go as far as to say police and court officials. The overwhelming majority remain peaceful, yet governments use the few to smear the many. The broken monetary system. At the heart of this lies money. Our entire economic system is man-made, propped up by debt and inflation. Workers create products, services and resources, yet they cannot afford to live. A person working 40 hours a week should be able to survive. Instead, housing costs are crushing families while corporations and governments tighten the grip. This is not because society cannot function differently. It is because those in control design the system to benefit themselves. The rich get richer and the rest are told to blame each other. Anyone who challenges this system is branded dangerous. Human rights in name only. Governments proudly point to the UN Charter of Human Rights, yet those same governments breach it daily. Freedom of assembly, freedom of the press and freedom of speech are conditional now. You may speak out, but only if your message aligns with the official script. If not, expect censorship, police harassment, or a media smear campaign branding you sovereign. That double standard is obvious. In every group, there's a small minority who take things too far, but the overwhelming majority are peaceful. The principle is applied everywhere else. Yet when a minority challenges government overreach, the entire movement is smeared as extremist. The same principle of fairness is simply not applied. And the final section is, why now? The timing of this language matters. As digital ID, expanded censorship laws and surveillance systems roll out, governments need to delegitimise opposition. By painting dissenters as extremists, they justify the crackdown. They normalise the idea that questioning government is dangerous. And the public, encouraged by a compliant media, cheers it on. Calls to round them all up echo from the very people who only years ago insisted that human rights and free choice were non-negotiable. This is not about defending every person who challenges government. It's about honesty. It's about recognising that labels like sovereign citizens are not neutral. They are weapons. And when governments weaponise language against their own people, the real danger is not those being labelled. The real danger is the system doing the labelling. We also need to be clear. The subject is critical to discuss now because of what is being reported in the media. We do not condone violence of any kind. What happened in Victoria with the shooting of 2 police officers was tragic and wrong. We send our prayers and love to the victims and their families. So that is an excellently written article, and I do urge you all to go and read that for yourselves. And as it points out very clearly, things need to be brought back into balance. Okay, the government is never ever going to do it of their own accord. So as always, we need people to be proactive in a calm and rational way and force our elected representatives to do our bidding. That is why they were elected in the first place, not to run off on their own agendas or support larger government ones. It's our duty to remind them of that. And of course, one of the greatest agendas that needs to be addressed right now is, of course, the absolutely out of control immigration in this country. Now, as I've said a number of times, it's not at all about being a racist. It's not about stopping immigration. It's about keeping it controlled and fair for everyone, and that simply isn't happening right now. And much like the story of the two police officers being killed on Tuesday has heightened people's emotions and got many people fired up, so too has this immigration issue, and of course in particular the rallies that are being organised for this Sunday. Now, we spoke to Jackie Dundee on Tuesday night's radio show, and she shared her thoughts and research on Sunday's rally with us. And again, we urge people not to let their emotions get the better of them in an attempt to do what they think is the right thing when it's not actually being supported by the right people, and could very well end up being another false flag operation. Again, something that is designed to divide and conquer even further, especially when you keep in mind that there are legitimate rallies, not one started up by some supposed 17-year-old with no history in this space before, that are being organised for September and October anyway. Now, my biggest concern, and I raised this with Jackie on Tuesday night, is just how much mainstream media coverage these rallies are getting. And that really should set off alarm bells for everybody. Just stop and think back to the COVID rallies. Okay, the media never mentioned them before the event and then just tried to downplay them significantly after the event. Oh yeah, there was only 5,000 people when there was 50 and all the rest of it. Okay, but here with these rallies, there's a news story coming out every few days. And of course, while they do try and put their negative spin on it, as we all know, there's no such thing as bad publicity, and the fact that they keep talking about them should be a real concern. So this is the final one I'm going to share with you tonight, and it says anti-migration protesters release alarming manifesto ahead of rallies in cities across Australia. Anti-immigration group March for Australia has released an alarming manifesto ahead of nationwide protests, vowing to stand against what it calls endless migration, a system it claims is driven by big business and backed by major political parties. The demonstrations will take place in all capital cities as well as Townsville and Cairns at 12 p.m. on Sunday, August 31st. The group claims big business is driving mass immigration. Whether it's Coles and Woolworths, the big banks, Harry Triguboff, the founder of Meriton Apartments, universities or the Business Council of Australia, they all want big Australia, a population of 100+ million ASAP. Each migrant means they can sell another 365 days worth of food or another mortgage. The only cost, our nation. They argue the rallies will unite Australians around common concerns. Whether you're concerned for our culture, wages, traffic, housing supply, water supply, environmental destruction, infrastructure, hospitals, crime or loss of community, we are stronger together. Don't leave this work to be done by your children. That's in the mainstream media. Now, messages like that are very likely to inspire people to take action. So you have to ask yourself this obvious question. Why on earth would the media be promoting a rally in that way, the very same rallies that the police and governments are urging people not to attend? I'll leave it up to you to figure out, but as always, please be careful. Consider sitting this one out and seeing what actually happens, and then join the next one if it's legitimate, or of course just join the actual legitimate ones in September and October. So a final overview that was sent through to me on social media this morning, I think sums up everything that I've covered tonight very well. It starts like this. And just like that, the pieces keep locking in for the enemy's checkmate looming. Number 1, anti-Semitism false flags, but hate speech laws still go through. Number 2, Palestine protest allowed over the Sydney Harbour Bridge. Number 3, AFP document circulates explaining anyone questioning government is a radical national terrorist risk. Number 4, 31st event goes viral from a kid with no following on TikTok. Number 5, anti-Semitism becomes a priority of the AFP. Number 6, white nationalists chime in and light a fire by saying they'll be running the 31st rally. Number 7, sovereign citizen hit piece on the ABC makes us look crazier and mentions guns twice. Number 8, anti-racism marches planned against the March for Australia plans. Number 9, freedom movement devours itself as usual. And number 10, police release report saying sovereign citizens to blame for shooting. So we can see here a clear pattern of events. And what it adds up to is nothing positive. So again, just keep it in mind and just be careful. Now, finally, on the subject of this weekend, I was in two minds as to whether I mentioned Sunday's webinar. On one hand, I don't want anyone making any claims that we're somehow profiting from the suffering of others, because I'm sure this video is going to get more views than most, of course, due to its content. But equally, given that the webinar was actually sold out earlier this week, we did put on specifically 20 extra seats just for those who really need access to this information. So what I've decided on is a bit of a compromise. First, I'm not going to show all the usual books and everything that I do at the end of the video. And secondly, what I'm going to do is I'm going to make 5 completely free tickets available for those who really need to access this information but can't otherwise attend. So here's the deal. This weekend's court paperwork, process and procedure webinar is vitally important, okay, because it shows you that you absolutely can stand up for your rights and fight back against the system and win, and do it within the current laws, but you have to know how to use them to your advantage. Now, we don't want anyone claiming that the laws don't apply to them. They apply to absolutely everyone, and we want to teach people how to hold themselves and others to account within the system. Okay, we don't want anyone claiming to be sovereign citizens. We certainly don't want anyone engaging in any kind of violence for any kind of reason whatsoever. We want people fighting back lawfully and peacefully. So as a reminder, Sunday's important webinar is going to cover the difference between contest mention, contest hearing, what you actually do on your first court appearance, how to correctly address the court, the difference between civil and criminal jurisdiction, how to challenge the jurisdiction of the court if they misbehave, and everything that you need to know about creating a strong paper trail, including the use of stat decks, affidavits, and outlines of submission. We're even going to be teaching how to file a conditional appearance if you want to go down that path. And of course, we're going to give you all of the legislation and all of the key court precedents that actually back up all of these legal arguments so you don't get railroaded. Now, as I said before, the webinar was actually sold out on Tuesday, and we did agree between ourselves to put on just an additional 20 seats so that it is still manageable. And I believe that there are just 6 or 7 of those seats remaining. Now, just to prove to everybody out there that this is genuinely about helping people and making a difference, we are going to release an additional 5 completely free seats. Okay. Now, these are going to be released for those who are really struggling but really need the information. So if that's you, go to the full day webinars link. Okay, we're going to put that up in the comment section. Don't do it now. I haven't put the 5 seats live. I want to make sure everyone's got a chance to watch this video. Okay, but go to the full day's webinar link. You'll find it in the comments. You'll find it in the description. Okay, and grab one of those tickets. The very last option. There's only 5 of them. I'm sure they're going to go quickly. Again, they're not available yet. As soon as the video ends, I'm going to go, I'm going to hit the button, and I'm going to make them live. And the first 5 people that need those will have access to them. And for everybody else, please just go to the webinar page, the court paperwork webinar page. Again, we'll have that link in the comments below, and you can secure your spot before, again, those extra tickets are sold out. Now, on a very final note, we've emailed everyone who has already registered for that event the details of how to log on to the webinar on Sunday, and we've also now emailed everyone who got the VIP tickets and the VIP material tickets. We've sent all your VIP materials today. It's quite a large file, so please check your junk or spam folders for that. Keep an eye out for those. And again, please make sure you follow the instructions. All right, so as always, I'm going to finish off with the latest memes to get people thinking about what's really going on at the moment. And we've obviously spoken about those machete bins, and that's probably about the only thing that they're actually ever going to achieve, if even that. So the guy said, wait, there's more. And the other bloke, oh, so nice of Jacinta to install these machete dispensing machines. And yes, what an absolute joke. And this, again, I think is very, very pertinent in light of those machete bins and everything else that's going on. We spoke on Tuesday night's radio show about all the new taxes that are being implemented. And this is crazy. A government that forces you to account to them for the way you spend your money, but refuses to be accountable for you to how they spend your money should be immediately replaced. And I think that's very true. Now, we've spoken about the rallies. We're well aware of what happened at the rallies over the Sydney Harbour Bridge and the burning of the Australian flag. And this is just something for to keep in mind. These are the top 5 punishments for burning the national flag. China, up to 3 years imprisonment. Germany, up to 3 years imprisonment or up to 5 years if politically motivated. France, up to 6 months imprisonment and or a €7,500 fine. Rwanda, 6 to 12 months imprisonment and 50,000 to 100,000 Rwandan francs fine. Greece, up to 2 years imprisonment. And yet, here we have people coming into our country on the Sydney Harbour Bridge and burning the Australian flag, and there's no accountability whatsoever. That's the type of thing that simply has to stop. Yes, another one that hopefully you can all relate to. Okay, very short, very simple, very to the point. You stay safe, I'll stay free. You stay compliant, I'll stay defiant. You say bar, I say nah. Okay, and then the final one that I want you all to keep in mind as we wind up finally tonight. I know it has been a longer one. If you keep people exhausted and distracted, they won't organise. If you keep them struggling and divided, they won't resist. The system isn't broken. It's working exactly as designed. That's what we need to do. We need to fight back against the system in a calm and peaceful way, of course, in a lawful and peaceful way. But we need to put the distractions aside. We need to come together collectively, and we need to rise up and put an end to this madness, to this insanity. So I'm going to leave things there for tonight. As always, I do urge you to use all of the free resources. We're not pushing anything paid here tonight. All of the free resources. There's plenty of information on our website, on the Aussie Speeding Fines website, on the Bank Secrets Revealed website. You'll find those links in the description. These videos, as always, are completely free to watch. You find them on the videos tab on our Facebook page, and me on our YouTube channel, and also on our BitChute channel as well. Our radio shows, again, completely free to listen to every Tuesday night between 8 and 10 p.m. We do have other products and services available, but as I said, out of respect, I'm not going to mention those tonight. I'm going to leave things there. Of course, no live radio show next Tuesday, but we will be replaying this week's show, and we will, of course, be back next Thursday for the next video update. I hope you can join us on Sunday for Sunday's webinar and give us about 2 minutes time, and as soon as this video ends, I'll go and hit the button, and I'll make those 5 free tickets available for anybody who needs them. Other than that, take care everybody and have a great weekend.